As you know, this audience, Project 2025, Mandate for Leadership, the Conservative Promise by forwarded by Dr. Kevin Roberts, edited by Paul Dans, Stephen Groves, which is it's a blueprint for a conservative approach to the Leviathan, a project that's been worked on for a while. Dr. Kevin Roberts, a star turned this morning because they absolutely, totally, and completely melted down. Could you just walk through your theory of the case about the administrative state, how this Leviathan grew, and the kind of logic to support a constitutional republic that this is, to actually kind of take it on and see how you can change it for the better, sir?
Yeah, Steve, first of all, thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure. The core question is the one that you just asked. And in essence, as you know and your audience knows, what Project 2025 is trying to do is issue a corrective, a series of new regulation or deregulation, new policies, new leadership to undo, to correct the century-long capital P progressive project of establishing a fourth branch of government, the administrative state. And it would seem to me, just thinking about my visit to MSNBC, that former Republicans, former conservatives like Michael Steele, if there's any shred of intellectual honesty remaining among people like that, would understand that this actually transcends, this goal transcends Republican and Democrat. It actually is exceedingly constitutional. And probably what I should have asked MSNBC is, for a network that purports to save democracy, why would you be opposed to a project whose main aim is to restore this constitutional republic? The answer ultimately, just is sort of personified by that history professor, is that they simply can't handle the truth that for the first time in the history of the conservative movement in this country, we're as organized as they are. We are as prepared as they have always been to take the reins of power and use it appropriately for the everyday American.
Dr. Roberts, it's ironic that you had this turn. And by the way, the reason I think our audience so admires you is that you just don't come on WarRoom or go on Fox. You go to Davos main stage and throw down hard in front of the party at Davos, or the World Economic Forum. You go into MSNBC and to the Lion's Den on a Saturday morning, 5-on-1. Isn't it ironic on the very eve of one of the most historic weeks in the Supreme Court, where 5 major administrative state cases will be decided and we'll get opinions, including the Chevron deference, that you're on there and they're in complete freakout? It's almost like they don't really understand what this Leviathan is. You think that's part of the problem, that they understand what they've built, but they don't understand how anti-constitutional republic it is, sir?
Completely. And they literally, well, not literally, figuratively live in a bubble. They literally live in a social bubble of Washington, D.C. or New York City or the left coast. And therefore, they have lost sight of the fact that it isn't just among American conservatives, Steve. It's also American centrists, even a handful of American liberals who understand that this country is in really bad shape for a lot of reasons. The main reason we argue at Heritage and at Project 2025 it's in bad shape is the precise point that you mentioned, that the everyday American no longer has power over his or her life. And as I tried to suggest on MSNBC this morning, we ought to aspire to every American waking up tomorrow and saying, I at least don't have to worry about the government over-regulating my existence. I don't have to worry about 350 armed agents with the Environmental Protection Agency, just to cite one example of the insidiousness of the administrative state. And we ought to celebrate that across the political spectrum. Here is an opportunity on the brink of these 5 potentially landmark decisions by the Supreme Court that we get to take our country back. And the final point that I will make, just giving the benefit of the doubt even to our friends and non-friends at MSNBC, is if the political left and the political right and the political center in this country are intellectually honest about wanting to restore civil discord, you and I both are skeptical of that as it relates to the left, then Project 2025 is the answer. This is how we sort of reset the balance between the proper amount of power that the federal government needs to have, but also, most importantly, the power that the people have.
Dr. Roberts, I know you're jammed for time. We do want to hold you for the break, just for a couple of the questions, but I got about a minute here. They completely melted down about the sealing of the border and the mass deportations. In particular, they seem to be they didn't care about American citizens and crime against American citizens. Is the problem we have here that the left and MSNBC and the New York Times don't cherish the American citizen, sir?
That's exactly right. In fact, I was appalled that Michael Steele, of all people, because of everyone that I talked to this morning at MSNBC, even though I disagree with him now, I'd give him the most benefit of the doubt for prior service to this country. I was appalled that he accused us of using an anecdote, quote unquote, an anecdote, to make a larger point. That anecdote is the human life of a 12-year-old girl in Houston. That anecdote is that college-age young lady in Georgia. That anecdote is now dozens, several dozens of American citizens who've been killed by illegal aliens. And the only way that you can begin to try to make sense of that position that Steele and others are holding is that they simply don't weigh the importance of American citizenship. They really don't care about citizenship. But more importantly, those of us who are middle-aged white Christian conservatives definitely don't count, and we're not allowed to be making an argument like that.
Dr. Roberts, hang on for 1 second. We'll take a short commercial break. Dr. Roberts, I just want to make, before we lose you, is that to make sure that, because Project 2025 is, yes, it's one of many, and obviously you guys put in a lot of time in to curate not just policy positions, but also subject matter experts. People could be on that 3,000 political appointees, and or if we get rid of, which I advocate, the 8 million contractors at executive and administrative level and fill those with our people too, we'll have millions of billets to fill. But Project 2025 is also the single best civics lessons we have out there. If people just go online, if they go to the seminars, all of it doesn't mean that for those of you who say, hey, I can't go join the administration now, it's to actually learn about the administrative state and how to deconstruct it. Where do people go? Because I want to make sure this is a mass participation exercise, sir.
Project2025.org, project2025.org. And I just want to underscore what you just said, Steve. Let's say someone is inspired to go participate in this, but they say, Steve, Kevin, I can't, as Kevin likes to say, tithe 2 or 4 years to go to D.C., but I want to be part of what I call the Second American Revolution, hopefully bloodless or no more blood than has been spilled by the left. And what you can do is submit your application. You can go through the training. And what it will do is give you that civics foundation. It'll let you know what's at stake, and it will arm you with details. It will arm you with information. So whether you go into the administration in D.C. or maybe you do something local, like serving on a voluntary council in your town or your county or maybe your state, what we're doing here is building not just for 2025, Steve, but for the next century in the United States. And that's why MSNBC and that history professor have lost their ever-loving minds, because they've never seen the political right be this organized, this focused, this rational about taking power and actually using it appropriately, as the Constitution says.
Dr. Roberts, how do they get to that? How do they get to Heritage for all the other stuff you're doing? We're going to have Mike Howe on hopefully early next week on other projects that you guys are fighting nonstop, and how they get to your social media.
Well, once again, project2025.org is the website of the day. But if you're interested in Heritage more broadly, that's heritage.org. You can follow us on X, Heritage, and Kevin Roberts TX. Thank you so much, Steve, and thank you immensely for your audience. Let me tell you, we got a lot to do, but we're going to take back this country. We're going to win.